So, I mean, as far as the core gameplay, like the AI, the weapons, the vehicles, things like that, nothing has actually changed, so that experience is still intact. The new features of the game, however, such as the skulls and the ability to play co-op over Xbox Live or System Link, definitely add another layer of replayability to Anniversary that wasn't necessarily present in the original.
Sure.
So like with skulls, for example, part of the fun is finding them, and then once you've actually found them, you're able to go back and activate them, and each one has a different effect that kind of forces you to play the game a bit differently. For example, like one of them, recession makes all your guns cost twice as much ammo when you pull the trigger, things like that. So you end up having to be a lot more careful. If you combine that with famine, where enemies drop guns with half as much ammo as they do normally, all of a sudden, like you're switching guns all the time, and it becomes that much more lethal. One of the challenges that we had when we started thinking about skulls for Anniversary was, since kind of our motto for the project was, don't touch anything in terms of the game design. We were nervous about actually doing anything that might affect the AI, so no AI code changes, things like that. Which, when you think about the classic skulls from Halo 3 or ODST Reach, a lot of those are actually designed to, do things that you might not even realize affected AI. Like, for example, spawning AI with twice as much health, or spawning the next level of a character instead of the blue elite, the red elite, things like that. And so we couldn't do those kinds of things, and so we kind of turned more towards affecting the player himself, or with a couple exceptions. Like we do have Grunt Birthday Party, of course, so you kill a grunt, his head explodes with confetti,
right?
Which, just hilarious. We have another version of that called Grunt Funeral, which is available to people that pre-order the game, which is like the Halo 2 version of Grunt Birthday Party, where if you headshot a grunt, he explodes, and he will in fact take out other grunts who then explode, so you can turn like a little pack of grunts to like a cluster bomb just by killing one of them.
Yep.
Another one that we've talked about recently is called Malfunction, and what Malfunction does is every time you respawn, a random element of your HUD just doesn't work. So it might be your motion tracker is gone, it might be you can't see how much health you have, or how much shields you have, or how much ammo you have in your gun, things like that, which is actually pretty funny when you're playing in Legendary and you have no idea how much ammo is in your gun, and you've survived for a while, and you have to basically swap weapons because all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, now I'm out of ammo. That's good. Right. So with the terminals, there's 10 altogether, one in every level, and each terminal is contextualized. So, like with Halo 3, a terminal was this forerunner object that looked sort of like a hologram of an eyeball or something like that, right? And in ODST, it was kind of random pieces of electronics that the superintendent would hack into once you got close. But since Halo 1 kind of has these multiple environments, depending on what level you're in, we gave each of the terminals an appropriate context. So like a computer terminal on the bridge of the Pillar of Autumn, or the Forerunner terminals are a little more straightforward. But like on the Covenant maps, they're more Covenant-oriented objects as well. And the actual videos themselves also tend to have context related to their content. For example, on the Pillar of Autumn, first level, you're actually receiving a message from Guilty Spark. And actually, in the Truth and Reconciliation, you see that the Covenant have also gotten a very different message. Right? And on the Forerunner levels, it's actually a completely different story, where you're actually, well, not completely different story, but instead of just getting this kind of bit of added fiction to Halo 1, you're actually getting to know more about Guilty Spark himself, what his origins are, and what he's doing on Halo. I would actually say they're even more difficult. The thing is like I was thinking about the Halo 3 skulls, and what I remember is that, there was one really hard to find Halo 3 skull that I would have been your daddy, because it involved jumping through holograms of these multiple holograms of the Halos in a certain sequence that actually, every time you jump through one, you would hear a tone, and if you basically made the Halo theme, it would make the skull appear.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself was difficult, except for the fact that some modders cracked open the level and saw exactly how to do it, and then, posted a video, here's what you do. So I didn't want to go with that route. We decided that a different approach might be more interesting, and instead we made it so that some of them are just so damn hard to reach that even if you know where they are, it's going to take you a few tries to get to them. And they're hidden in very obscure places, varying levels of obscurity depending on actually the power of the skull itself, because some of the skulls in Anniversary are actually a bit beneficial to the player. And so, like, with those kinds of skulls, we put them somewhere where it's like, okay, sure, somebody's going to find it, and then somebody's going to post their video of getting to it. But just having the video in front of you doesn't mean it's as easy as just going and grabbing it. It might still take you 10, 20 tries to actually, reach to where the skull is, things like that.
Sure.
At this point, we've certainly shown a lot of people the visual switch button, but it's one of those things you really have to experience firsthand to really understand how cool it is. Anybody can edit a video and say, here was the game from 10 years ago, here's the game now.
Yeah.
Even if you see somebody doing it in person, that's still cool, but it's just not quite as amazing as, you step out into the canyon of Assault Control Room in the classic visuals, and the snow's coming down, and the walls are all ice and rock and everything, and then you hit the button, and all of a sudden it's this new, familiar but very visually enhanced, with thick snow swirling through the air and things like that. And, there's still the chaos of the battle going on everywhere. Just really, being able to do that whenever you want is something that it's hard to appreciate until you've actually had time to run around and try it out. With the Anniversary multiplayer maps, we kind of wanted to. We wanted to have a little more creative freedom because we knew they were going into Reach, and we wanted to be able to support Reach gameplay, so armor abilities and the weapon sandbox, which has a pretty dramatic impact on how a map plays. And at the same time, we wanted to be able to do our best to be able to recreate classic experiences and things like that. So what we ended up doing was turning to Forge to kind of be our middleman on a lot of things. And with High Noon, or Hang 'em High, in particular, what we did, our partners at Certain Affinity didn't actually do a whole lot of dramatic design change to the map. The core of the map is still there, obviously at a much higher level of detail than was possible with Halo 1 or 2. But they did add some infantry tunnels, basically, some alternate routes that help lead up from the lower levels of the map to the upper levels, which means you have means of getting to the higher levels of the map that don't necessarily mean you're going to be exposing yourself to every jerk with a jetpack, for example, and things like that. So there's multiple paths as well. And then for our classic Hang 'em High Anniversary map variant, we just take Forge objects and block those paths off and remove a couple bridges here and there that Certain Affinity added, so it basically all of the maps got a pass for mobility with respect to what's changed for Reach, and then all the maps, all those particular changes were done in a way that we can basically take them out for an Anniversary style game type where people don't have any particular armor ability.
Sure, definitely.
The armor abilities they're a huge change for Halo in general. They kind of, among other things, the two most popular, Sprint and Jetpack, are gigantic map mobility changes, right? Suddenly there's any way you want to get to the highest point on the map, which can both positively and negatively affect a map, right? So it could make it so that one team is able to very easily replace their teammates at the top of the map and just control the map from the top down, or it can mean that you're taking shortcuts that otherwise wouldn't be available to you. And I mean, so for us, that was kind of the big thing. Is like, well, how do we handle these maps that used to just be like simple boxes? Like certainly Hang 'em High is a glorified box, and even Beaver Creek is like a box with two smaller boxes inside of it.
Right.
It's like how do we handle the situation where normally people would be running around on the ground, but now you're going to have the people that are running around on the ground are completely exposed to people flying across the top of the map, things like that. And a lot of that came down to adding covered paths and adding these features like with Battle Canyon. I'm sorry. With Battle Canyon, the teleporters that used to be at the backs of the bases are now moved into small rooms behind the bases, which means you're actually not exposing yourself, and you can actually have a standoff inside those rooms instead of having to worry about some guy chasing you down, flying over the base to get a drop on you and things like that. Halo Anniversary comes out November 15th.
Awesome.
Yeah.